Unfortunately, strong and severe storms continue to impact our area with a significant flood threat in parts as well. So we want to make sure that you know what's coming. The most recent update to the severe thunderstorms that are headed towards northern Davidson County, they're in Robertson County right now. They'll be moving into Sumner and Wilson. We're talking wind speeds up to 80 miles per hour. This will bring down trees.
Right.
This will cause power outages, and with it being the lunchtime time frame, really important that you are not getting on the roadways at this point. So here's a look at the current warnings that are in effect right now. For our eastern tier, we do not have severe thunderstorm warnings, but we do have ongoing flooding, and we know roads are impassable there. So do not attempt to drive in flooded roadways. For the severe thunderstorm, potentially packing 80-mile-per-hour wind, those strongest winds are now on Interstate 65 from Nashville to the Kentucky border. That storm is moving quite quickly to the southeast, and we tell you this a lot, don't outrun these. It's not a race. I know there's a lot of camps. Clearly, we're looking at Old Hickory, potentially impacts along Percy Priest. You absolutely do not want to be on the water with a storm like this. That goes without saying. But also wind speeds can intensify over water. So if you are near the edge of a waterway, it's important to be in an interior space and to get away from that edge here. Here's a look at the timing. Hendersonville, this is about 5 minutes away. Goodlettsville, that wind is likely increasing as we speak to you. Mount Juliet, 126, and then moving towards Hartsville right around 143.
Yes, and you know, the concern, Bree, too, is this heavy rain that's impacting them. It's moving towards the area that's already seen 6 to 7 inches of rainfall this morning. So flooding, a big concern, and something Bree and I will be watching very closely, especially in parts of Overton, Fentress, and down into Cumberland County, too, through the remainder of your night. We are streaming right now on the News Channel 5 Facebook page. That is where you can get up-to-date information as we continue to track this thunderstorm. Please join Bree and I there and streaming on our OTT platforms.
This has been a Storm 5 alert.
For folks that are still with us online, thank you for being with us. And as we mentioned earlier, you heard us just say, if you can take a moment and think of the person you love most in the whole wide world, if you can call them, if you can text them and help be that mouthpiece that says, hey, we are under a Storm 5 alert, there's dangerous weather outside right now, that makes such a difference in keeping our community safe. So there are two primary threats. There's ongoing flooding happening across our eastern tier. We're talking Putnam County, Cookeville, I'm talking to you. Overton County, Fentress County. We're also seeing significant flooding there because upwards of 7 inches of rain has already fallen, and it is still raining at this point. The second threat is the severe thunderstorm warning that's in effect for Robertson County and northern portions of Davidson County. We're also seeing a new warning now just being issued for portions of Dixon County, another storm intensifying here. So this means we're talking travel along Interstate 24 and travel along Interstate 65 north of Nashville is not safe. If you know someone that is in a vehicle, they need to pull off and they need to seek a shelter. If they cannot get out of their vehicle and get into a safe shelter, they should park away from a tree, keep their vehicle on so the airbags will still deploy, keep the seatbelt on, and duck their head down so that their heads are not exposed to the windows. Now, these are severe thunderstorm warnings. The wind is moving in a straight line. It is not rotating. We do not have any active tornado warnings. It's possible one or two may try to spin up during the afternoon hours today, but that's not our primary threat. But straight line winds of 70 to 80 miles per hour will bring down trees. That's why I don't want you to park next to one. If you're in a home or a structure that has a lot of trees nearby, let's go ahead and get into an interior space. The best thing you can do when the weather turns wild like this is focus on putting as many walls between you and the outside as possible. Get into an interior space, get into a lower space. If you're in a vehicle, get off a roadway, stay away from trees. The storms are moving at a pretty good speed here, so they will pass you within about 15 minutes, and the strongest wind will be found on the leading edge of those storms. In the interior is where we would likely encounter potentially some hail and, again, a blinding rain. There are no flood warnings in effect for the severe thunderstorms just north of downtown at this point, but it is possible that those could be issued. So let's take a tour of what's happening right now. The most recent warning issued is for Dixon County, Cheatham County, northern portions of Hickman County. It's for this thunderstorm right here that's dropping out of Montgomery County and is moving towards the southeast. This is the newest one to be issued, but we're also keeping a really close eye on this storm that's just north of Nashville. Both of these are packing 70 to 80 mile per hour winds. I know we have a TDOT camera available. Let's go ahead and pull that up, and then we'll go back to radar and we'll do some storm tracking. This is Interstate 65, so that was just north of Nashville. You can see it appears that there's a bit of hail that's bouncing off the front of that camera there. We could see hail as large as quarters. You know, and I mentioned the threat for especially those high profile vehicles that are going by with 60 to 70, even 80 mile per hour wind. Hail, also a threat for folks that may be on roadways. So again, if you know someone that's driving here, really the very best thing that they can do is to pull off the road and get to a safer shelter at this point. We do have a connected line nearly now of severe thunderstorm warnings that stretches along Interstate 65. Also looking to the northwest along Interstate 24, we're seeing some very strong storms there as well. Again, 60 to 70 mile per hour wind, the potential for some large hail. Now, I don't want to undercut the flooding threat because that is ongoing across our eastern tier. These storms are very efficient rainmakers, and we do have a significant amount of ongoing flooding there. I'm going to turn the radar off just briefly so you can see only the warnings. Clearly a lot of lightning associated with these as well. Everyone that's shaded in the green is in a flash flood warning. So that's Overton County, southern portions of Pickett County. We've got western portions of Fentress County, eastern portions of Putnam County. That does include downtown Cookeville. Flooding stretches to Clark Range and down into Cumberland County. These warnings will be in effect for some time because it's not just the storms that are causing flooding, it is the runoff. We know that our eastern tier is hilly, it's beautiful, that's as we get into the plateau, but that can also make those low-lying areas see pretty fast rises in water over a very short period of time. Going back to the severe thunderstorms to get an update here on where the strongest is, the likely some hail near the Springfield area, especially with the concentration of hail there, but the area of concern for the strongest wind is on the leading edge. So this now stretches from Portland to White House down to Hendersonville. So it's on the eastern side of Interstate 65, coming down just towards the Goodlettsville area. This means travel along 386, that's also a no-go, at least for the next 30 minutes or so. Back behind this, the wind won't be nearly as strong, but it will still be gusty. And we've already seen, because of the storms that we've had earlier today, streams and creeks are running high. For Sumner County, I know Station Camp Creek, Drake's Creek have been running high. If the ground is saturated, that can also set the stage for trees, potentially even some power lines to come down a little bit easier. So we want you to just go ahead and choose the proactive safety option, not wait for a report to come in. We are getting reports of the very strong wind across the area, 60 to 80 mile per hour winds possible in Hendersonville. I mentioned just the other night, I live in Hendersonville and there was a tree down there. So please make sure that you're staying safe.
This is a Storm 5 alert.
For folks at home, we continue our coverage on Facebook Live, but we also want to make sure that we are letting you know what's happening because these storms are packing a very serious punch with them, and we want to make sure that you're safe.
We have gotten reports out of Greenbrier that trees coming down all over the city, and that is to be expected with this storm, seeing 70, 80 mile per hour winds moving across this city. And we've got to let folks know where this is headed next.
Right, so two concerns here. We have active ongoing flooding across our eastern tier. We also have some intense thunderstorms just north of Nashville that are packing 60 to 80 mile per hour winds, 80 mile per hour winds. We had significant power outages, trees down Tuesday, and that wasn't from 80 mile per hour wind.
Right.
So that means we've got weakened branches, we've got weakened trees, and we don't say this to fearmonger, we say this to encourage safety on your part. 80 mile per hour wind will bring trees down.
Yes.
That will cause power outages, that may make some roads impassable. The strongest winds right now are in central Sumner County, moving into Hendersonville, stretching north through central portions up into Portland. The worst winds have likely passed Interstate 65 at this point. Looking to the west, we also have another severe thunderstorm warning that's in Dixon County. It's packing 60 to 70 mile per hour winds. All of this is headed into Cheatham County, Davidson County, and Wilson County. So this impacts travel along Interstate 24 as well as Interstate 65.
Right, and so we are also concerned with the ongoing flooding threat across the Cumberland Plateau. Join us on Facebook Live as we continue to track both of these issues.
This has been a Storm 5 alert.
All right, guys, thank you for joining us back here on Facebook Live as Bree and I continue both to track the flooding happening over in Overton and Fentress County and the very strong thunderstorms getting ready to push into Hendersonville. Right now, we actually have some video coming out of the Monterey community of just how intense the flooding is there. We have seen pictures of an auto shop that was flooded, also a baseball field flooded there as well. Unsure what this new video is showing us. It looks like homes and possibly some businesses that are dealing with that flooding threat as well. So Putnam County, the Monterey community, just one of those areas impacted of rain over 5 to 7 inches that have fallen this morning. Unfortunately, more rain still coming down right now and very heavy rainfall on the way for this same area in the next couple of hours. So this flooding threat will continue to be a problem as we head into the early evening hours for tonight as well. So Bree, you know, it's just devastating, especially after what we saw in Mayfield, Kentucky yesterday, just to know another hard weather day for folks out there.
You know, one of the things that we focus on, Heather, is the time of day, because that can really be impactful as far as the threats that it brings. The thunderstorms that are happening right now are when folks are out and about and driving on our roadways, and we've got 60 to 80 mile per hour winds. Take a look at our Skynet camera. This is looking north. So clearly very dark. Now take a look at what it looks like when you look south. I mean, talk about two different views from downtown Nashville. So this is looking at the approaching storms. The approaching storms are packing an 80 mile per hour wind threat. That is significant. Well, you can see some lightning there off in the distance. It does appear that as these winds come in, we could see even some power issues as trees potentially come down across the area. It's starting to look like a low-hanging cloud forming on the front edge there, which is expected. That would be a shelf cloud indicative of that strong straight-line wind coming in.
Exactly, and we have gotten so many reports already coming out of the Robertson County community of damage that has been done, trees that are down, likely power issues and power lines that have come down with these winds. I mean, 80 mile per hour winds is nothing to mess with. When we tell you that you need to be inside your home, off the roads, we mean it. Normally, we only say that during tornado warnings, you know, to tell you to take shelter. But with this kind of severe thunderstorm warning, with this kind of wind, you need to treat it exactly the same as a tornado warning. You need to be in an interior room, away from windows, staying off the roadways until the storm passes, just because of how strong these storms have been, Bree.
You know, and that wind threat will be on the leading edge of these storms that comes in. Once that leading edge passes you, there will be a torrential downpour behind it. That may cause some localized flooding, but the downtown area has not seen the rainfall totals that areas east have. So widespread flooding is not likely with this storm that's moving into downtown. But again, we want you to exercise the safest option that you can here. This is a look at our TDOT camera. This is Vietnam Vets and Conference Drive. So we're looking out in Sumner County right now. I am so glad to see the road nearly empty because that means folks are making good choices. These are normally really crowded this time of day, especially as folks are moving about and maybe away from their television and clearly not streaming social media if they're driving in a vehicle. Again, that underscores how helpful you can be in getting that messaging out. Here is a look at radar across the area. This is a loop over the last 6 hours, and unfortunately, it has just been a conveyor belt of relentless rain and thunderstorms that have come in. So let's take a tour of where the strongest storms are right now and where they're going, so we can make sure that we are answering those questions for you. Looking to the east, flooding. Hands down, flooding is the main threat. 30 to 40 mile per hour wind gusts are possible with these storms that come in, but they are not packing the same wind threat as their neighbors just to the west are. So we've got a thunderstorm just in between Overton and Fentress County, southern portions of Putnam County, in portions of DeKalb County. Big cluster of lightning strikes there. I wouldn't be surprised if some pea-sized hail potentially with some of these storms. Taking a look at the hail signature, you can see that light gray color. That would indicate some pea-sized hail potentially here. I'm also getting reports right now. We know that the strongest winds are in Sumner County, and just got a report from Rock Castle, which is on the west side of Indian Lake, so it is exposed to the water on the west, which is where we expect the strongest winds to be, that the winds are unbelievably violent coming on shore there, which does not surprise me at all. So taking a look at the Sumner County storm, the strongest portion of it is here. It's just to the east of Portland, stretching down towards Gallatin. It'll be moving into Castellian Springs within the next 5 minutes or so, moving down Highway 31, moving down Main Street. This is the Indian Lake Peninsula here, and clearly that's where we have the strongest winds. And of note, we're looking at the radar coming out of Nashville, which is just across the water on the Hermitage side. And when storms get really close to the radar actually can't see the top of it because the radar beam doesn't shoot straight up. So the fact that we're getting such a strong signature on this storm, with it being in such close proximity to the radar, really speaks to how powerful this storm is.
Right, and even the National Weather Service, just from our communication with them, said that they lost power at their office as this is moving into their neck of the woods right now, and their generators had to kick in. So it is likely as the storm gets closer to you that you have a really high threat of possibly seeing some power outages with this.
You know, and it's not the only storm out there, but this is the one that's packing 80-mile-per-hour winds. So we want folks in southern portions of Sumner, let's just hunker down for a little bit. You hang with us. Same thing just across the lake. Hermitage, Mount Juliet, over towards Lebanon. We want you to be proactive. You've got that precious gift of time of a few, maybe 5 minutes. Grab a charger, put some comfortable shoes on, get to that interior space so that you can keep watching us. And once we can give you that all clear, we will give you the all clear. That's the best thing that we like to give around here. But unfortunately, we are not. We are not all clear across the area.
You know, and with how blinding this rain is within this thunderstorm as well, we've got to talk about where it's moving. And it is headed straight towards the Cumberland Plateau that has been dealing with rain all morning long. So this map shows you how much rain has fallen within the last 24 hours or so. And you'll notice there are parts of Overton, Fentress, Putnam County, even parts of Cumberland County that have seen over 6 to 7 inches of rainfall. Would not surprise me if some of those estimates were closer to 8 inches south of Livingston and near the Jamestown community. So this is near Highway 127 that goes down into Clark Range and down into Cumberland County, where we are most concerned and where we have had reports already of flooding and of impassable roads. We showed you the Monterey community and the flooding that has happened there. The problem is, not only does flooding continue after the heavy rain stops, but even if the heaviest rain has stopped falling there for the moment, more heavy rain is coming in through the remainder of your night tonight. So let me quickly show you as we zoom things back out and turn on our exact track where we can show you what's going on through the future. Over the next couple of hours, you notice it pulls these stronger thunderstorms in between 2, 3, 4 o'clock across the plateau, right over that same area that has been agitated through this morning, and then even continues to show some thunderstorms in southern portions of our area through 7, 8 o'clock this evening. So we still have several hours to go, Bree, until we're really in the all clear across the area. Want to quickly throw radar back on for you, give you a recap if you are just tuning in to us. What I have turned on are just the warnings. I've taken the noise completely off of it. So the radar, the lightning is gone. I just want you to see the areas under the current threat. So where you've got the darker green colors, we'll zoom in there first. This is the active flash flood warnings that we have for Livingston, Jamestown, parts of Cookville, Putnam County, and all of Cumberland County included in the flash flood warning. Severe thunderstorm warnings, which are the yellow boxes you see. This is where we have the threat to see that 60 to 80 mile per hour wind stretching from areas in Sumner County, moving into Wilson, Davidson County, back into Cheatham and Dixon County there for you as well. Quick check of our sky cameras. Wow, take a look at this. Yeah. A storm is moving into Nashville right now, and you can just clearly see how dark that thunderstorm is pushing through.
You know, what's interesting about this shot is this is now looking to the south. This was the bright one. So we're looking behind the shelf cloud. Right? So that's where those strongest winds are starting to come out. That's what causes that low hanging cloud to form. Now let's look at the interior of the storm. It's here. So it is clearly pouring downtown. Now, the strongest winds are east of downtown Nashville. They are in Sumner County and Wilson County. I did just check NES, and we have just under 5,000 within the NES power system without power. This is a look at the storms that are packing the biggest wind punch at this point. Again, it's a flooding concern for areas east. It is a wind and somewhat of a hail threat for the storms that are across Sumner, Robertson, Davidson, Cheatham, portions of Dixon County. Looking at the big picture, there's a lot of spots that are dry right now, but this is going to last for a few more hours, and that's why we want you to be safe. So big picture here, we'll zoom in tightly to the storms that are impacting areas north and to the northeast. And we see the strongest winds now coming into northern Wilson County. So Mount Juliet, especially that northern portion of Wilson County, because that's all lakefront. And so there's going to be some really strong winds. It can get a little, the terrain there changes too. It's really pretty on that side of the lake, but you can almost get some bluffs there. There's a lot of docks. This is going to be rocking and rolling for some folks' boats that are tied up on that Mount Juliet side of the lake. Moving towards Lebanon, Highway 231, that moves up through northern Sumner County. Again, that gets really hilly as well, so that's not a safe place to be driving through at this point. Flooding remains the primary threat for areas east. There are a couple additional storms that are trying to fire across our southern tier, but they're not packing the same punch. It's really these two areas that are our biggest focus at this point, north of downtown and the flooding ongoing east.
Right. So again, as Bree and I have been telling you, if you are in the path of, especially the area seeing the 60 to 70, 80 mile per hour winds, you want to be inside. You don't want to be outdoors, be driving in this. You want to get indoors and wait until, again, that leading edge of the thunderstorm moves past your area here. Let's just get a check of the times with some of these severe thunderstorm warnings, something I feel like we haven't gone over in a minute. So I'm going to switch this over to my radar where we have this pulled up. Severe thunderstorm warning out now for Cheatham, Davidson, Dixon, and Hickman County until 1:30. However, they did just tell us they're going to reissue this and expand this a bit further into Wilson, Rutherford, Smith, and Trousdale counties to extend that warning out just a bit more. Right now, the current warning up into Sumner County goes until, again, 1:15, but that is going to be taking out a little bit further into Smith and into Trousdale County. Right now, this covers Robertson, Sumner, and Wilson. The good news is back towards Greenbrier, where we have had significant reports of trees down in that area. The worst of the storm has now passed you. Yes, you're still getting steady light to moderate rainfall there across Highway 41 down into Greenbrier and even back into Robertson County that really saw the worst of this storm so far. But thankfully, the leading edge is now past you and the strongest part of that line is now through your area as well. What Bree had mentioned earlier about the strongest area with winds would definitely be towards the Wilson County side right now. If we turn on our wind speed, now this is looking with winds going away from the radar. Check this out with the really light pink color there around Belinda City. So this would actually be close to the Providence community and the Providence shopping area down in Mount Juliet. This is a very highly trafficked area in the Mount Juliet community. They're around Interstate 40 and they're on Mount Juliet Road as well. As you see this area in the light pink, this is where we likely have winds, again, greater than 70 to 80 miles per hour, possibly pulling down trees, power lines coming down. Again, we want to make sure we're staying off the roadways as this continues to move closer towards the Gladeville community. So this will be moving over towards Interstate or down towards 109, Interstate 840, and down into the Gladeville community here in the next, I would say, 10 to 15 minutes. We're getting ready to do another cut-in over the air. Stay with us.
This is a Storm 5 alert.
Hey everybody, Bree Smith and I back here in the Weather Center as we continue to watch very strong winds impacting particularly the Wilson County area at the moment. I've got pulled up in my radar, Bree, where some very strong winds impacting the Belinda City community down near the Providence Shopping Center there in Mount Juliet, where you've got that light pink color that is indicating on our radar where we could see anywhere from 70 to 80 mile per hour winds, knocking down trees, causing power outages, and potentially causing damage to to buildings as well. We have had damage reports out of the Greenbrier community as well as Hendersonville as the storm has moved through.
Now, the worst of it has cleared Hendersonville. Like you mentioned, Heather, it's seen those bright pink colors. Those quite literally represent the wind speeds. And we're looking at 70 to 80 mile per hour winds. That's what just went through Robertson and Sumner County. And we are already getting reports that thousands are without power across the area, and I expect additional power outages will be coming in with this. We also mentioned the Providence area. That is a popular lunch spot. It's a lot of shopping there, and it is lunchtime, and so we may have folks out and about, and this is not the storm to be out and about in. We don't want you in vehicles near trees. If you're in a home or if you know someone that is, and you've got trees outside your home, let's go ahead and get into an interior space away from the windows there. That's the safest thing that you can do. Heather, you've pulled up some storm track on what is now the strongest storm, hands down, in our area.
Yeah, impacting Mount Juliet and Lebanon as we speak. I mentioned earlier the Gladeville community is about to see the leading edge of that strong wind. You probably only have 5 to 10 minutes to make sure that you're in that interior spot of your house. Winds gusting over 70 miles per hour in Mount Juliet. We just got an official weather report out of there. This is moving down towards the Watertown community by about 1:30, so 15 minutes or so before it's impacting you. If this continues on its path, it's going to move into Smith County, Trousdale County, and then unfortunately breathe over into Putnam County and over across the Cumberland Plateau that has been hit significantly already with rain this morning.
Especially anywhere really along I-40, which again, we want to emphasize the threat for folks traveling with 80 mile per hour wind out there. That is capable of producing significant damage, and high-profile vehicles will be rocking and rolling with that. It's equivalent to a Category 1 hurricane. I mean, for framework, for perspective with that. We are simultaneously streaming on the News Channel 5 Facebook page. We want to make sure that we're getting that information out there. So we'd like to encourage you to join us there. Let folks know that that's where they can find this coverage, and we'll make sure to continue to come in with the latest updates.
This has been a Storm 5 alert.
For folks still with us online, this has just been an incredibly difficult week weather-wise, and we continue to have threatening, dangerous weather impacting portions of the area. We want to make sure that you know what's happening, you know what's coming, so that you can make the best choices for you and your family for your safety today. There is a severe thunderstorm watch that's in effect until 7 p.m. We also have ongoing flash flooding across our eastern tier. So there are a myriad of threats depending on where you are. And I'll also say it's flat out not raining in a lot of spots. So there are impacts here if these storms are right on top of your home, but there are also impacts if it's potentially a loved one, right? Or where you might have been planning to spend your afternoon or traveling to. We don't want you to drive into any of these storms. Now, the severe thunderstorm warning that you see next to me right now, it's for 80 mile per hour wind, which is significant. That's considered a destructive storm because of the potential of those wind speeds. You heard us reference just a moment ago. A Category 1 hurricane is 74 mile per hour winds. So this storm is packing winds stronger than a Category 1 hurricane. Now, it's not a hurricane. They're not the same thing, but it is packing that kind of threat. And I hope that helps you understand why we're so concerned about the impacts of it. So here's a look at the storm track as this moves to the east. We are still seeing a swath of 60 to 80 mile per hour wind with this that stretches from western portions of Trousdale County. So now we're talking 231 here. Here's Trousdale County crossing the border into Wilson County, coming into the southern portions where Wilson meets Davidson. Hands down, these are your strongest winds, but it's a large area of strong winds. The primary threat today will be flooding for our eastern tier, wind for the most recent batch of storms that are impacting the area, and then on the lower end, we have seen some instances with small hail. Not impossible that there wouldn't be a brief spin-up tornado this afternoon, but that is not our primary threat. As I just showed you, these winds are blowing in a straight line. And what can be so significant about straight line winds is that they tend to cover a larger area. I mean, this warning in and of itself encompasses the entirety of Wilson County and southern portions of Trousdale County. It is a large storm impacting a large area.
This is a Storm 5 alert.
Thank you for staying with us this afternoon. We continue to track the severe storms impacting parts of our area, both on Facebook, and of course we want to hop on the television and let you know what's happening. So the strongest storm right now is in Wilson County and western portions of Trousdale County. Flooding remains a top concern for our eastern tier, and the track of these storms does look to take it along I-40 to the east. So the severe thunderstorm warning that we have in effect is for Wilson County. It includes northern portions of Rutherford County. It is this storm right here. We already have reports, unfortunately, of thousands of power outages out there. And what that means is that while I'm on TV right now telling you about these storms, some folks may not be able to turn the TV on to get that information. So important that you've got our Storm Shield app and multiple ways to get weather information. This is a look at the hail signature. That has decreased with the storm as it has been moving towards the southeast, but unfortunately the wind speeds, they have not. And that is the primary threat here, especially when it comes to power and specifically when it comes to travel. The strongest winds at this point are south of I-40. They're where you see these bright pink colors near 840. So potentially here we're looking at 60 to 80 mile per hour winds, 67 mile per hour wind being indicated here on radar. This is in a larger swath of, I'm talking torrential downpours. There is so much moisture outside, it literally feels like you are still in a sauna. So the primary threats with this storm, the worst now through for Robertson County, Springfield, we can give you the all clear there. This warning, the one that's moving into Wilson County, the eastern portion of it, it does include just the southern tier of Sumner, is in effect until 2 p.m. There is an additional warning just to the west of this that includes Cheatham County, western portions of Davidson County, Dixon County, and Hickman County until 1:30. Bottom line is if this storm is headed towards you, your number one job is to be in an interior space. If these storms are not impacting you, like I said, there are portions of the area that are bone dry right now. The severe weather threats we've seen this week have not been equal opportunity storm makers for us. Some are dealing with much more vigorous storms than others. If you're not being impacted and
you